and this is an important time. We're between the Wesak full moon and the Gemini full moon and World Invocation Day. So these monthly gatherings are primarily places for spiritual service, participating in a group meditation that's used every Wednesday to shine a light on the energy of goodwill in human relationships, to really see this energy. This is the goal of this meditation, so that particularly for those of us who do it every week, to really begin to see the energy of goodwill in all its depth, its energetic vitality, and its diverse expressions, and to see its presence, to see goodwill as a living presence in all our relationships, in our families, local communities, professions, our nations, and our world of nations. And as we become to identify this energy of goodwill, this most basic, fundamental human energy, the more we see it, the more we recognize it. And as we recognize it, we strengthen that energy. And the meditation recognizes that goodwill in human relationships is an expression of humanity's ever-deepening relationship with the living Christ and the great ones on the inner planes, as they guide humanity on our evolutionary path towards right relationships. The energy of goodwill is naturally present in all communities, all nations, all faiths, all parts of the world. It's the most basic human expression of love and sense of relationship. And as the presence of goodwill is recognized in families, communities, and nations, so can it then be mobilized, organized, and empowered to become the primary force for good in human affairs. And this is the key work of World Goodwill. It's really a question of recognizing, to help to harness goodwill as the most potent energy available to address human problems. Problems like poverty, discrimination, materialism, and this massive, overstimulated investment in armaments. Today, after the meditation, I'll be introducing our guests, who are two co-workers, Andy and Belima Ogwigwe from Nigeria, and they'll be speaking about their experiences in establishing a variety of sustainable development initiatives that have at their core a will to empower and awaken latent energies of goodwill within communities. You're going to enjoy hearing from Andy and Belima, I know. A key part of the goodwill meditation that we'll be working with directs our attention to the question of how we can spread goodwill. We're encouraged to think about this with our whole mind and heart. This is, after all, a meditation, drawing on levels of intuition and considering how our soul might see this question of spreading goodwill differently from the more intellectual parts of ourselves. It invites us to explore very practical questions like, what can we do in our own small lives to help to kindle the flames of goodwill that we find around us? What can we do in our families, workplaces, neighborhoods, schools, churches, temples, and in the spiritual groups that we are affiliated with? How can we take responsibility for at least fanning the flames of goodwill in some way, and in particular in ourselves? And what are we doing as a group in this meditation to help kindle the flames of goodwill in the world? We can explore these questions through the meditation as if we're looking at our own lives and identities and at the group from the altitude of the soul, and at the same time looking at the life of the meditating group, noticing opportunities and actions that we and the group are already taking that we might not see when we're only using our analytical or rational mind. Indeed, we can expect the soul to shine a light on what we can do as individuals and groups, in terms of simple steps that are appropriate to our lives and our personalities, not designed so much to change the world, but more to reflect and express our intention to be useful to evolution, useful in some small way to the working out of the divine plan. So the meditation is really critical in terms of helping us frame our orientation so that we begin to identify with ourselves as relaying points of goodwill. And as the meditation makes clear, any steps that each of us takes can be looked at as contributions to a dynamic process of empowering, mobilizing, and vitalizing the energy of goodwill in the world. I think that word vitalizing, that it's a vital energy. This is an esoteric way of looking at sort of outer relationships, to vitalize and electrify them. And this process is being carried forward with varying levels of purpose and care today by all the members of the new group of world servers around the world. It's a group activity. We're not doing this on our own. But by using this meditation, we're concentrating and focalizing that work. As the energy of goodwill becomes more organized and focused in nations and amongst peoples, and as it is empowered with increasing wisdom, intelligence, and maturity, so will its influence in human affairs grow. And we can just imagine what it would mean for goodwill to become the primary motivating force in every field of relationships, economics, education, religion, politics, everything. So let's do this. Let's work with this meditation now, the Goodwill Meditation Group. To begin, link up in thought with all those people throughout the world working with this meditation group. Reflect on the fact of relationship, that we are embedded in relationships within our family, within our community. We have a relationship with our nation. And we're related to the world of nations. And we're related to and part of the one humanity made up of all races and nations. And now together as a group, let us use this mantra of unification. The souls of all are one, and I am one with them. I seek to love, not hate. I seek to serve and not exact due service. I seek to heal, not hurt. Let pain bring due reward of light and love. Let the soul control the outer form and life and all events, and bring to light the love that underlies the happenings of the time. Let vision come and insight. Let the future stand revealed. Let inner union demonstrate and outer cleavages be gone. Let love prevail. Let all people love. Reflect upon your own and humanity's relationship with all beings who dwell in the higher realms of mind and heart, the spiritual hierarchy of saints, rishis, bodhisattvas and masters, honored by all the world's religions and spiritual groups. Can you change the slide, please? And now imagine that we are standing together within the center of the spiritual hierarchy as a group, immersed in the consciousness of the heart of love. Some know this heart of love as the Christ. Others have other names for the one at the center, including the Maitreya, the Imamati, and the Kalki avatar. And maintaining this high point of contact, let your thoughts reach out to include all members of the human family in whom the energy of goodwill is active. And together use the affirmation, in the center of all love I stand. From that center, I, the soul, will outward move. From that center, I, the one who serves, will work. May the love of the divine self be shed abroad in my heart, through my group, and throughout the world. Visualize the energy of love flowing from the hierarchy through the men and women of goodwill and into the hearts and minds of all people, infusing them with goodwill and creating loving and harmonious human relationships. Meditate on ways of spreading goodwill, creating right human relationships, and restoring peace on earth. Realize that as we do this together as a group, we're helping to build a channel between the spiritual hierarchy and humanity, through which the energy of goodwill can flow, uniting humanity, solving its problems, and healing all cleavages. linked in thought with men and women of goodwill all over the world, sound the great invocation using the adapted version. Say it with deliberation and full commitment to its meaning, knowing that together we are radiating its potent energies to humanity. From the point of light within the mind of God, let light stream forth into human minds. Let light descend on earth. From the point of love within the heart of God, let love stream forth into human hearts. May the coming one return to earth. From the center, where the will of God is known, let purpose guide all little human wills, the purpose which the masters know and serve. From the center, which we call the human race, let the plan of love and light work out, and may it seal the door where evil dwells. Let light and love and power restore the plan on earth. So thank you, friends. Belima and Andy, Andy, do you want to turn on your... Thank you. Nice to see you. So it's a special privilege. It's a real privilege, and it's a joy to be welcoming two co-workers who are actively involved in the work in the West African nation of Nigeria. It's so lovely to have you both here. As many of you will probably know, Nigeria is the largest population of any country on the African continent. It's a hugely significant country. And what you may not know is that in this country, there's a long history of work inspired by the teachings of Alice Bailey. So Andy and Belima Ogwigwe are both active participants in the Nigerian Group for Goodwill and the African Goodwill Group that links co-workers from across the continent and hosts regular online meetings. And we'll post in the chat a little later a link to a website that the African group is establishing and under development, so that you can keep an eye out and go back and look at that. We've invited them to talk to us today about some of the sustainable development programs that they've initiated. And it's lovely, like to me, it's so lovely to know that within our network, in our family of Goodwill workers, working under the inspiration of the Bailey teachings, there are so many who are carrying out these playing a leading role in initiating programs that are really changing relationships for so many people. Andy is Executive Director and Program Director of Accord for Community Development, Accord for Community Development. This is a Nigerian-based frontline development institution specializing in research and blueprints for sustainable management of resources in rural marginal communities and in disadvantaged urban centers. And Belima is Executive Director of the Center for Information and Development. The center is engaged in the creation of a better and more sustainable society through education, research, strategic communication, and information dissemination on issues affecting the well-being and human capital development of target groups, youths, women, and children in the Niger Delta. And again, I'll post in the chat, once we get started, links to both of these two groups so that you can follow the work that these two folks are doing. So, Andy and Belima, it's lovely to have you here. You're very welcome. Over to you. Tell us a little about your work, what's led you to it, and some of these programs that you're involved with.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone, to friends and brethren around the world. It's a privilege to have this opportunity to share the work that Accord for Community Development is doing in Nigeria as part of the footprint, a group helping to foster the work of a new group of world servers. Accord, like Steve mentioned, is an organization that works in Nigeria. It's a social enterprise that networks with other NGOs in Africa and around the world. The organization was founded about 35 years ago as a grassroots community-based organization. And today it's programming with a national focus and also has international affiliations. Accord particularly focuses on interventions in the Niger Delta region of Nigeria. As you may be aware, the Niger Delta region of Nigeria is a region that is very rich in hydrocarbons, has a lot of natural resources. In fact, the region accounts for about 90% of Nigeria's foreign exchange, and it has one of the largest deposits of oil and gas resources. But the region, unfortunately, is a kind of ground zero, for the phenomenon that is commonly referred to as the resource cost. This is a phenomenon, an anomaly, where a region's natural endowment, resources leads to environmental degradation, deprivation, and conflict rather than development. In fact, the Amnesty International has stated that the Niger Delta is one of the most polluted regions in the world. So this is the area where Accord works, and I'm an indigenous from the Niger Delta part of Nigeria. And so Accord works in local communities, to try and see how we can intervene and create sustainable livelihoods and promote sustainable development. So we work in partnership with the local communities. These include community groups and associations, local stakeholders, trying to find local solutions to the problems that are being faced with them, and then also interfacing with policymakers, other international development agencies, and other NGOs. And so Accord's work is usually concerned with post-conflict reconstruction, in communities that are recovering from conflict. Like I mentioned, as a result of the environmental degradation, which dislocates, the local economy by virtue of the fact that resources are being extracted, and the communities that host these resources are unable, to carry out their traditional means of livelihood. I mean, usually the environment over hundreds of years has supported them, but now they can no longer, like fishing, farming, can no longer properly take place. So as a result, other types of intervention needs to take place, and this is where Accord comes to work in some of these communities, and we do this by community mobilization, mobilizing the communities towards this effort, impact assessment, carrying out assessment to assess the impact of the things that are going on, and then community needs assessment and appraisal, and then focus group engagement. And we use participatory development approaches, which have to do with participatory planning, participatory resource mobilization, and then participatory monitoring and evaluation. In the past, you had interventions that were designed from outside the country, from outside the location, maybe through some outside institutions who didn't really understand what was really going on. And it was a kind of hit and run development kind of work. And usually when these interventions are carried out, they usually don't turn out, to benefit the person, the people. And so Accord, being a local organization, our approach is to work with, the community stakeholders, identify stakeholders, engage with local stakeholders, and and it involves participatorily determining, what exactly are their needs, what are the felt needs, what kind of interventions, what are the things that will actually make impact, not necessarily the impact of the donor or somebody who wants to intervene there, but getting local people involved. So this is a point how we work. And then also we're involved in promoting nonviolence and constructive engagement. As a result of the deprivation, things that have happened in the region, there's a lot of distrust from promises that have been made, that studies carried out, that there were no interventions, nothing happened. So as a result, there's a feeling that in order to get attention, you need to be disruptive, you need to be violent, you need to block right of way and create a kind of conflict scenario. And so Accord, working with these local stakeholders, we try to teach them, train them, and set up mechanisms for constructive engagement such that they can find a more healthy means of engaging with critical stakeholders in order to intervene in their situation. And so this has helped to reduce a lot of the conflict situation, which actually does not help anyone, rather creates destruction of life and property, and actually creates further deprivation and vulnerability, because many times you find the law enforcement are always quick, to side some of these multinational companies and to suppress, the local population. And so by means of adopting a constructive dialogue and engagement, it's easier, to make presentation and come up with some kind of more long-term, kind of work. So these are the kind of things that we do. And then we also focus on strengthening local institutions and structures. We find out that in order for development work to be sustainable in these communities, you need to strengthen local institutions and structures. And wherever structures already exist, we try to strengthen it, build their capacity, and help them to function, because these local institutions were developed organically, and they are the best, to sustain whatever development work that is going on. And then we also focus on leadership development, as a result of doing this work. And different types of interventions that we carry out really have to do with resource mobilization, even at the local level, setting up local project management structures. And so if there's an intervention, we set up local committees that are going to oversee from project design, project scoping, monitoring, evaluation, and all of that. So in a nutshell, these are some of the intervention that our code is doing. And drawing on the energy of goodwill, we help to promote peace and dialogue. We help to build stakeholders, recognizing that there is a lot of talent. We have a lot of leadership quality, even in these vulnerable communities as they are. All that is needed is to identify them, to create a spark such that the work can take hold. And you actually find a lot of persons who are willing to bring their energy to solve their own problems. And then participatory development, participatory planning, and then promoting collaboration and multi-sectoral engagement, both with the government, the private sector, even the companies themselves. We act as intermediaries when companies want to address some of the legacy issues that they've caused. So this is part of the work that Accord does. It originally started like a job when I started it, but as I got into the wisdom teachings and I started learning more and more about service, I mean, it just occurred to me that wow, the work that Accord is already doing, in which I'm involved in, I mean, is basically a service arm. And so as a result, I try to be more intentional, more mindful in what I'm doing, and to also encourage my staff, those who work on these projects to see it as a service, rather than just a job. So in a way, these are some of the work that we're doing. Hopefully, if there are questions at the end. So it's work in progress. It's not as easy as I've just presented it. It's one community at a time, one project at a time. There are always different local dynamics. When you're working with human beings, so many things crop up. So it's something that we continue to do and work in order to make a difference. And of course, with the current challenges coming out in the global place with a lot of international organizations beginning to look more inward. So we're also facing resiliency issues and, trying to continue to forge this, but with intentionality and in recognition of the energies, which are always available. We try to draw inspiration from that to continue to move on. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Andy. That's a very fine description. Just thinking, it's amazing that one word, participatory. The depth of what that means, of actually involving and recognizing goodwill, the energy of goodwill in a community you're working with. That's a huge thing. And I wonder if I see, Andy, you've gone off, you froze. I'm sure you'll come back a minute. But I wonder, we'll go to Belima now, but I wonder if after that, now you're back. If after we've heard from Belima, you might think about talking about one specific project, just one example, and even exemplifying what participation really means, what it means to engage the community you're working with. Because that we use words like participatory, what they really mean is something very practical, and it's about bringing spirit into form. So, but now Belima, let's hear from you, because you have your own story and your own programs.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Belima Obuigwe, and I think I've been asked to talk about awakening goodwill. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay,
Beautiful.
I think I'm audible. And how we empower families and communities through the work that we do in Seafield. Yeah. So the key message I like to pass across from my experience is that the opportunities for service, the opportunities to impact our communities, the opportunities to help to awaken others and to build resilience in our communities is actually just present in our everyday journey. as we just live our lives, as we fulfill our responsibilities. And the call is for us to just be present in that journey. Let me just read this. I have this on my screen. I like my teacher, my journey, my service. I am present, I listen, I trust. I learn, I embrace, I serve. I cherish those I serve. Growth is imperfect. The process is painful but intriguing. Let's enjoy gratitude. So this is my key message for today, as I was reflecting for the meeting. So I was born in southern Nigeria, as you already have some insight from Andy. I'm a female in this lifetime. I'm 52, but unfortunately, at 52, I still think that I'm kind of sort of a wayfarer, trying to figure out purpose with lots of uncertainties. Every day has to be a reset for me. And I'm always looking for the silver lining in each day because I don't wake up with answers. I wake up every day with more questions. But in listening to those questions and paying attention to them, I find my North Star and I'm able to make some impact and influence on people as I found out it's been happening. So as a child, I was very fearful. I avoided conflict by all means possible. I was that kid who would run away or leave school early if someone threatened to fight with me or to have an argument. But when I was a teen, I stumbled on a few books. One of the books was Love by Lao Russell. It's a book on philosophy, and there was this chapter on charm. When I read that chapter, I think I found my magic and I picked up some clues. I came to realize that most people wore masks. And in order to influence people, you have to refuse to be distracted by the mask. You have to be unfazed and you have to look beyond the masks and actually engage. And when I found out that, and that there was no force that was as powerful as love, when I found out that those cues, my fear was gone. And I started engaging more proactively and more confidently. And I learned to go around every day with silent questions or voice questions. So as I met people, I always had this question: who is this person? What is their pain? What is their soul cry? I started practicing that. And it was empowering and it was magical. And it was at that point in my teen years that I started working with more purpose, with more intention, like being more intentional and all of that. So when I was 17, I met Andy and I found out that we had a lot of things in common. And it's been 35 years down the line, and it's been a journey, a shared spiritual and personal journey of intrigue. 10 years after we met, we started a family, and that opened me up to an entirely new school. Raising children taught me to listen. I learned a lot. I found a lot of insights and a lot of doors opened for me. And in the course of just learning the parenting journey, I started volunteering. I became very active in schools. I started speaking at schools. And I actually saw my role as just encouraging and inspiring educators and parents to embrace our journey as a calling and to make the most of it. So my first project on that journey came when I then had to adopt a class of kids. I had a telecenter. I was running a telecenter in Port Harcourt at the time, and I noticed that we had a lot of off-peak periods when our clients, the facility and the rooms were not full. So we started allowing children and schools to come use the facility. And over time, our business premises was becoming a children's center sort of, and we had to then separate it. And then we created Center for Information and Development and registered it. About at that same time, I ran into one of my clients who had walked into the office with a UN report, and I picked it up, I read it, and it opened me up, because from that UN report, I saw that there was a lot more going on out there in the world. I read the HIV, I read about the HIV scourge, and it was heartbreaking. And so I started volunteering and CFID, from just providing ICT services and support to schools, and then started providing getting involved in other programs around health, reproductive health, hygiene, sanitation, maternal health, and we became more involved in the communities. Prior to that, a lot of what we did was private sector driven and private sector funded, partly because and how did all this start? So my intention in this conversation, I hope I'm not overrunning my time, is just to draw attention to those coincidences and those things that happened in my journey, and those milestones that just opened up and new vistas, and for me and for service and for my team, the people I work with. So after I got married to Andy, we had to move to his hometown because his mother was retiring. She had been running a COD and needed to retire, and Andy needed to go take over, and he asked if I was willing to come, and I said yes. When I got there, I couldn't find a job. I was at the time doing an ICT course, and then there was nowhere to complete the program because in the whole town there were no computers. The only computers in the town were in banks. Only banks had computers. And I started thinking about how to do this. And Andy drew my attention and said, hey, you don't even have to do this. This is an opportunity right here. Why don't you set up your own center? Why don't you be the pioneer of your own? You are the pioneer student for your project, for your business. And so that was how we set up the first telecenter. And it was a first in many ways. It became the very first private organization that provided digital telephony to that town. That town was like the headquarters of 2 counties, 2 local governments, as we call them. And we set up the first digital telephony. It was the first ICT training center. It was first in many ways. And it was transformational on the town, to say the least. We didn't have that in mind when we started, but it was something surreal. And the center eventually became like a concourse for young people. If you're a young person, it became like a rite of passage to go train at Optima before you left the town to go figure out your career. And then on weekends, we had long queues of people, families queuing up to reach their families abroad in diaspora, to connect to universities, to find jobs, and then to move on from there to bigger cities and to other parts of the world. So, and that led to an award for enterprise. And then I eventually got a fully sponsored training to the UK to learn about mentoring and all that. So the initial program we did had to do with mentoring young people in enterprise. And in the course of 16 years I did that, we reached, I would say, at least 1,000 through enterprise training, business support, and connected young people through opportunities and all that. And then the work we did with international development, with international development community and space. The highlight of that program was a program in maternal health, where we were trying to reach women in remote, rural, hard to reach communities. It was HIV, and the objective of the program was to prevent mother to child transmission, so that babies, unborn babies and new babies, didn't get HIV transmitted to them by their mothers. But the beauty of it was that we found ourselves in very remote communities. We were working in very low resourced places, and we were working with pregnant women, and we were helping them to access care. And we also found ways to incentivize them to come out from birthing at home, birthing with traditional birth attendants and in unsafe places, to come into safer and more structured environments. So yeah, but of all the work I've done, the most intriguing was the things that we created, our own initiatives. So in the course of going to schools and volunteering and talking to parents and teachers and educators, we found out that young people who were getting ready for college in high schools, a lot of them didn't have a sense of purpose, and they vocalized this. They were choosing careers and making decisions based on what their parents told them or what teachers told them, and it wasn't empowering, and there was a lot of confusion. So we decided to intervene in that space. And I just kept on thinking about with my team, how do we do this? How do we achieve this? How do we help these people? And boom, ideas came, and then we came up with a number of tools, and then we set up boot camps. So we started running boot camps, which we called Quest Expedition. So the boot camps were a space for young people to come in and like go on a personal quest, a personal journey of self-discovery. And usually at the end, we'll tell them, what do you think you achieved? And a lot of the feedback will say, I found myself, I found my voice, and I found my journey. And how did we do this? In these boot camps, we had a lot of reflection activities. So where we come from in Nigeria, Nigeria is a very religious environment. So you can't be talking about meditation or
Halima, we've lost the we've lost the sound. Look, here you are, you're back again. Do you want to unmute yourself? And
yeah.
yeah,
So in those boot camps, we then had to come up with ways of adapting some of the tools, some of the processes for self-discovery that we use in more of our esoteric work. So instead of meditation, we're doing reflection activities. These kids were doing games, they were doing puzzles, they were designing their personal journey maps. They were asking questions and answering questions about themselves. What's the world? What's my dream world? How do I play in this world? What impact do I want to make? What do I have? What am I bringing to the table in myself? What are my strengths? What are my weaknesses? What are the graces and talents I have? The decisions I'm making, from where am I making them? Why? And we got them doing a lot of why and how questions and a lot of group and individual activities. At the end of the either 3-day or 5-day boot camp for the younger kids, we did 3-day boot camps. For the older ones, we did 5-day boot camp, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. And at the end, they usually will come up with what they call their personal journey map. And this was an empowering tool that they used to guide themselves. And some of the kids and some families were so inspired, they would then sign up for like a 1-year mentorship program where they wanted us to like guide them, just provide support as they implemented their personal journey map, which would be a document. And they usually had to make a decision whether they wanted to present their journey maps in a schema or in a diagram or in a flow chart or in a story. So thank you. So that's basically the summary of what we do and what we've been doing. Thank you. I'm
thank you,
open to
Halima.
questions.
Thank you
I'm
so
sorry about
much.
my network.
No,
Yeah.
your network is, there's no problems with your network. I mean, we could hear well just that one little time. That's worked really well. Thank you.
Okay.
Look, the two of you, I think you've shared something that's, we're very fortunate, all of us on the group, to hear this, because it is the true story of simply being yourselves and then serving and then growing through doing these incredible projects. And there's something in the spirit of what you're doing that is very uplifting and inspiring and very central to the sort of Goodwill meditation theme. Rather than, because there's some questions, there's quite a lot in the chat, and Andy and Billy will send you a copy of the chat after this call anyway, so you can see that. But we have a little, just not very long, but a little bit of time. Is there anyone who would like to raise their hand and then ask a question to either Andy or Belima or both of them? Anyone on the call who wants to? If you raise your hand and then we can unmute you. Here we go. David, do you want to unmute yourself?
Can you hear me?
Yep, beautifully. Thank you.
Yes, I would like to ask both of you, Wilima and Andy, how much problems is it to raise money for your projects?
Andy, you want to go?
Definitely. Money is needed for the work. Um, but somehow we've also found that when there is a will, there is usually a way. And if people are well mobilized, relevant stakeholders are um, properly engaged, usually they would respond. So over time, Accord has found support, for our work. Like when the organization started, actually, it was started by my mom, who, after she retired and she was a church worker and just set up the organization. It wasn't known as Accord at that time, basically to just support women, maybe like microfinance, just support women. And it was as she started this work without really, she wasn't planning to set up an organization. She wasn't planning to set up something global. She just was just like a local outreach in one local government. And then from there, somebody recognized the work, and said, oh, this thing you're doing at this small scale, if you just get it a little bit organized, we can help mobilize some funds for you to scale up this work. And that's actually how it started. And so um, over time, both from personal resources and from mobilizing from the local communities. There are some projects that we do that we also get the local communities to mobilize resources. And also, we also do proposals. We also identify international organizations that are interested in doing like the UNDP, Bread for the World in Germany, DFID, USAID. We've done projects with most of these international organizations. And then with specific on the Niger Delta, you also have most of the oil companies operating there. Over time, they've recognized the need to support the local communities where they work. And so they've set up like intervention programs. And so Accord usually acts as an intermediary between these corporations and the local communities. So when interventions are designed, Accord as an intermediary helps to make sure that they are well implemented and that the needs of the local communities are protected. So one way or the other, we found different ways of supporting the work.
Thank you. The I see we're at the hour now. Are you two okay for if we go on for a little bit longer? Andy and Belima, are you available, or if we go on for another
Yes,
5?
please. Where?
Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, thank
Yeah.
you. Then let's that response about money. First of all, it's a great question, David, because I always like to. So how does the money thing, and then your response, Andy, is the central thing that if there's an openness and a needs being met and a willingness to think that the money will come, it can be found. And that's where I think that for those of you who work with the money meditation, which many of you do here who'll be on this call, that's a pretty central thing too, because it actually, the money meditation combined with service work, with any field of service work, helps that flow. And then suddenly something appears because a real need is being met. So that's a lovely thing. Kit, do you want to unmute yourself? We'd love to hear from you.
Yes, hello. Well, first, Both of you, Belima and Andy, thank you so much for the gift of your sharing. It's just been such a beautiful gift to the world and to all of us. And Belima, you had said that when you were young, you had read I think it was two books that made a big difference in your life. And I was just wondering if you could tell us or put into the chat the name of those books again.
Okay, I could just tell you. So the one I mentioned, there was three books, but the one I mentioned was Love. It's titled Love. It's a white book by Lao Russell. So Lao Russell is Lao and Russell as her surname. I think it's a philosophical book, but it's titled Love. If you Google Love by Lao Russell, you would see it. And the particular chapter that opened me up was titled Charm. I barely remember what else was in that book, but that chapter was it. And then I also read a book by Walter Trubbish, and it was titled Love is a Feeling to be Learned. It was a small book. And then the third one was a book, The Spiritual Man by Watchman Nee. I don't remember finishing that book. The caption and some bits of the book, yeah, just got me to understand about different aspects of us. And yeah, it was many years ago. I was in my teens.
Well,
Belima,
thank you very much.
sorry, I got Trubish. I'm putting it in the chat. Trubish.
Probably BUSH.
Trobish. Yes.
Got it. Okay, I put it in the chat. Sorry, sorry,
Yeah,
Kit, I didn't mean to jump in.
Yeah, your spelling is correct, Walter Trubbish. Yes.
Okay, thank you very much.
Anyone else? Eleni, you had your hand raised, and then do you want to? Okay. Is there anything that either of you would like to add as a final thought? And then
I'd like to add on the money question. I think money can get discouraging in my experience, and focusing on money sometimes can get discouraging, but you just have to start. You have to follow that third, that passion, and do something and take the first step, even if the first step is just engaging two people. And one of the things I had to learn is that, okay, sometimes some of us, we have to take that step, even if the work you do is invisible. It doesn't matter if no one sees it. It doesn't matter if it's not huge, but just being able to impact that one or two people is all you need. And to impact just one or two people, you don't need a lot of money. You literally can do that with whatever little money you have on your own. And from there, you're no longer in control. Once you take those first steps, you're no longer in control. You just have to walk. So like when I started working with the initial projects and the boot camp. So we have the projects that we did with private sector and they were funded. So when I got the award for youth enterprise, it came with funding. And I was officially a mentor and I was working with these multinational firms in their communities and helping people. But as I continued to do that work with them, I found out that there were a lot of limitations because these multinationals, these companies are interested in brand value. They just want most of the time, they want to check boxes and they want showpieces. You are in this business for a different reason. And sometimes when you pour all yourself into it, and then their staff you're working with and those you have to collaborate with are there and they're just there for a job. And they can drop the ball on you at very critical moments. Sometimes you do work and you open up hearts and you touch people, and then you have these communities ready to go all out. And just at that point, the people will just tell you, okay, we're done, we're good with this, because they've gotten their pictures, they've gotten the videos, and they've gotten the clips. And it can be really frustrating for your community and the people you work with. So you have to know when to take those monies, when to put the pause button, and how to meander that. It's a bit different for the international development communities. You're able to reach more, yes, but you want to go for programs where you are also able to contribute in design. And you also know when, when they're missing their way and you need to step back. But for your own initiatives, in my experience, the ones where we dreamt, we saw a need and we decided to go for it, you don't get, because you don't have enough funding, you don't get the chance to scale as quickly. You have to focus on quality. You have to focus on staying with those few kids. For us, is the young people and the families. Because in our programs, we were working with children, they were minors, under 18 and below, and we're working with families. But the kids were the entry point. Eventually, you're impacting the whole family, because when parents want to know what's happening, and you have to do presentations, you have to give feedback. And what we did was we started with our own resources. And then once parents started seeing the impact, they started seeing their children take ownership, become more assertive, make decisions, and they started seeing changes. Then they wanted more. At that point, we would then tell parents, well, this costs money, and this is a budget for the next boot camp. How much are you willing to put on the table? And then we saw parents signing up. There were parents who really wanted and couldn't sign up. So we also find ourselves blending children from high income, high social strata families with children who had no money and families who couldn't pay. And that was also an asset and opportunity, because the kids who couldn't pay and the poorer kids, had so much that they were bringing to the table. And the richer and well-off kids were in for a lot of surprises, because in the group activities, sometimes the poor kids became the natural leaders, and then the richer, wealthier kids had to follow them because they had to get their work done. So it was just a lot to learn. But all I want to say is, take that first step, reach out to that one person or two or three people that tugs at your heart. And I think it takes a life of its own. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you both so much. That's been a wonderful, it's been a wonderful time together. There's 95 of us still here. There were a bit over 100 earlier on. So thank you both so very, very much. It's lovely to see you again. And also remember that Belima and Andy are part of this Nigerian group for Goodwill that has a long history. It's part of our family of Goodwill workers, and it's good to be together with that family, the whole family. So thank you both very much. Thank you, everybody on the call.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Our pleasure.
Let's just have a moment of silence together, and then we'll close the call. Thank you. Thank you. And just a reminder that for those of you involved in the wider work of all the different activities, there's an Arcane School conference coming up this coming weekend in Geneva, and then the final phase of the Arcane School conference the following weekend in, oh, here we go, in London. The Gemini Full Moon Meditation meeting, the next Triangles meditation group is on June the 9th, and this meditation group, Goodwill Meditation Group Webinar, June 25th. So it's good to be together. Thank you, friends. Goodbye.
Bye, everybody.